Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is that time of the week again. We are at the middle part of the week, which means the weekend is swiftly coming into view. And of course, that means Saturday is closer and there is another football match to preview. And it is Gills taking on Newport County at Rodney Parade this coming Saturday as we look to extend our unbeaten run to a club record 21 games. But of course, we are very aware that the last team to beat us were Newport County at Rodney Parade. And I'm pleased to say, for the second or third time now, joining me on the channel tonight is Keiron Jones, massive Newport fan, and also does some brilliant stuff for the Deck News and also Fourth Tier Fever, which is a brilliant fourth tier podcast. Clues in the title. So what I will do, as always, I'll put Kieran's details and the details for all of them down in the description. Go and give them a follow on X for all things Newport and all things League Two. Kieran, appreciate you coming on because I know, number one, it takes time out of your evening, and also because I know that you're in a similar situation to what I was and other Gills fans were in for a long time, up until certainly the Brad Gallinson took over the football club. So I'll try not to make it too long. We'll try and make it as painless as possible. But obviously, you know, the idea is for us to talk to you and find out about Newport County. So we'll swiftly look at recent form. Last six for Newport doesn't make pretty reading. So it was 5 defeats on the spin, and they preceded a draw last weekend against Tranmere Rovers. So those losses came against Grimsby, Salford, MK Dons, Cambridge, and Bristol Rovers. So it is just a solitary point from the last 18 available, which sees you sitting 22nd place at the moment with 5 points from 18 from 8 games. Sorry, Gills still undefeated. 14 points from the last 18 available, and they've come against Tranmere and Bromley in the way of 2 draws, and then victories against Chesterfield, Crewe, Oldham, and Notts County. And we currently sit second in the Sky Bet League Two table on 18 points from 8 games. Only goals scored keeps us away from the top. The form's not good, Kieran. We know that it's there in black and white. So I don't want to dwell on that. I want to talk to you about other stuff, the bigger picture, so to speak, that maybe is causing these issues that's filtering down to when the football is played on the grass. And I was doing a bit of research, and obviously there's a link between Newport and Gills in Michael Flynn, who had a great spell as your gaffer for around 4 years, but was a good player for Gills back in the day as well, if you go back to the mid 2000s. But since Flinney left in October 2021, after 4 solid slash successful years, relatively speaking, in terms of keeping you in the Football League. Then you had them wonderful cup runs where you played all manner of Premier League teams. But since then, in the same sort of period, you're on to your fourth manager. You had James Rowberry, who lasted a year. Graham Coughlin lasted 18 months. Nelson Jardine lasted 9 months. And you're now on to David Hughes. Having seen firsthand ourselves as Gills fans how detrimental it is to constantly sack players, we had 3 or 4 last season. How concerning is that? And then obviously there's going to be another question about the owner in terms of the direction your football club is going at the moment.
It's a hard one. It is, truth be told. Michael Flynn did incredibly with us, not only
Mhm.
keeping us in the Football League, he very nearly got us up to League One,
Mhm.
2 playoff final campaigns.
Of course.
But when we're looking at managers come and gone, Rowberry to an extent, Coughlin especially, they had that experience, that kind of stability. And that's why out of the most recent 4 managers, they've had that longevity with them in comparison to the likes of Nelson Jardine. Never really managed a club in his life.
Mhm.
Was known to be with Hugh Jenkins during times at Swansea. That's how we got the connections.
Mhm.
And that's basically how he got the job. Didn't go great, but kept us in the Football League. Can't complain too much. Is it concerning? Yeah, in a way. It's yes and no in kind of the same answer because despite, and you're going to move on to the next question about ownership in a while, I know that there's been Newport fans who have complained about the owner, lack of transparency, no real action on the pitch. We've heard of action off the pitch, but on the
Mhm.
pitch it hasn't sounded too pretty. I still have a relative amount of faith with the likes of Hughes, who's at the club now. Those defeats that we've mentioned, only one of them spans over more than a 1 goal span.
Mhm.
They are close games. The thing that I'm finding, and this kind of drifts away from the point, is we seem to under Hughes have a lot more success in a back four. We saw that with Jardine, and he's kind of diverting away from that back four. The point that we got against Tranmere, we were playing a back four. You could argue we could have got all three. So I suppose it depends on the owner's kind of vision for the club in terms of whether it's concerning or not. It depends whether he kind of wants to take the on-field stuff. To my knowledge, he took most of the on-pitch responsibility, signings and whatnot last season, but I feel a little bit more confident with Hughes. But that's not to say, oh yeah, we'll win this game and now we'll win the next 20 odds and we'll get promoted. It's far from that.
So we have to talk about the owner, because Hugh Jenkins, I think, bought a controlling stake in January of 2024. So you're looking at around 18 months ago now. No, just a bit over that. That was never my strong point. Yeah, 52% stake meant that he gained control of the football club, and he's gone through 3 managers already. So there's this issue with sacking managers full stop, but it also falls at the feet of the owner in the last 18 months. You've been fairly vocal on social media. You're in a WhatsApp group with myself, a League Two one, and you've had your opinions in there, which is what we're all entitled to do as long as it's done the right way. Just explain to other Gills fans for us why you're not a fan of Hugh Jenkins.
It's a hard one, Ryan, because when he came in, 18 months ago, I had all the hope in the world. The work he had done at Swansea was phenomenal. And some of the work he's done at the club, I alluded to off the pitch stuff. To my knowledge, what he's done is he's kind of got us a better lease at our ground, Rodney Parade, a little cheaper, long-term stay. It's better in that front. He's moved the academy around to, I'm not quite sure if it's in Cardiff, if I'm not mistaken. So he's done a few things off the pitch that look positive. Now, my vocal points that I've made on WhatsApp, on social media regarding negativity in a way is that one, he doesn't have the cash to do what a lot of owners do, just throw money at the team. That's not what I'm expecting by any stretch. But we've had kind of links and rumors to potential people coming in to financially support the club, almost extra shareholders, if you want to put it that way. As I've read throughout social media, of course, take it all with a pinch of salt. We never know what's on social media. But on the pitch, it feels mistake after mistake. Getting rid of Coughlin, I feel that was a mistake in itself. When he had left, the knowledge that we had was that Coughlin wanted to go the other way. Jenkins wanted to go a separate way with the way he kind of directed the football club. So that's how that ended. We then had, God knows how long, 2-3 months to pick someone to success him. Gary Monk was in that conversation.
Because Coughlin didn't leave until like late June of last year, did he? When pre-season was essentially starting for every single club.
Yeah, it was bizarre. The season had ended. It was about a month after pre-season ends. We've heard nothing. No signings, barely any news on pre-season fixtures, let alone anything else. Then out the blue, he's kind of just thrown up the door. I'd imagine that was over, a month and a half discussion. So that's why it was made so late. But we had so many kind of established names. I understand Gary Monk's not really went in the way that I'd imagine he's wanted to in the past few seasons. But he was the one that we all thought, right, he'll be potentially the guy. He then goes to Cambridge, and then we're kind of left with Nelson Jardine, who was at the club anyway. He was appointed as I think it was head physio. He was in that backroom staff. We knew he was going to be there. And then he's just randomly given the first team manager role, or the head coach role, as it was put. Again, social media says that Jenkins had a good amount of the control of the signings we made last season. Some of them have aged relatively well. Some of them have went well. Some of them have not. But no, I think the reason I go towards not backing I wouldn't say not backing the owner, because 18 months in concept of football isn't that long of a time. So, there's still time to turn that kind of stuff around. But I think my criticisms over recent months have come off of There's no real news of investment or anyone kind of coming into the club. And the on the pitch stuff feels really stale. We were asking for weeks, if not months, for a midfielder and a striker just to patch the squad up for the forthcoming season. We got two of them on loan. Yes, it's better than nothing, but we could identify as supporters those problems 2 months ago, from the first game of the season. On the pitch, it's not very proactive. And I understand that he's done, to be fair and to give him credit, he's done a lot of good work off the pitch. It's the on the pitch stuff that I'm finding the problem with. It's difficult. You want to watch football, and don't get me wrong, I don't expect to win the league, but I don't expect to have to walk to Rodney Parade, a ground that, teams used to hate coming to, and expect to lose. And that's the current position I'm in, and a lot of us are in. It used to be, we're playing, for example, Bristol Rovers, derby game. How are we going to do today? I might have a go at them. That's what we would have said 4 years ago. Every single person I asked when we went to that Bristol Rovers game, I went, "Oh, do you reckon we get on?" Yeah, comfortable loss. And that's all very close to what it was. But yeah, he's not very proactive on the pitch as of now. But again, still time to change things up. I haven't lost full hope in him because of what he's done at Swansea.
Fair enough. But like you say, it's frustrating because you only get sort of money in the bank, so to speak, from the off-field stuff. Eventually, that runs out if your football team's not very good on the green stuff. So I can understand the frustrations, and I appreciate you filling us in into why. Let's talk about on the pitch, because obviously that's what's going to be happening for 2 hours on Saturday afternoon between 3 and 5 o'clock. Ironically, you had a fairly solid start, despite you saying there were the very obvious shortcomings to the squad at the early part of the season. You picked up a creditable draw against Notts County. You then beat Crawley. Since then, obviously, it's been very slim pickings. It's just 1 point after that, which is why you sit right down near the bottom of the table. To try and flip this and make a negative into a positive, though, just how important could Courtney Baker Richardson's late leveller at Prenton Park have been at the weekend? Number one, it stops the rot. Number two, it gets him going for the season. Um, and it gives you something to cling to, I guess, as a fan base.
Yeah, I suppose in one side of the coin, we could be clutching at straws.
Hmm.
We could be sat there going, maybe he stops his own individual ROM. I don't know. I can't count how many games it's been since he's actually scored. So it's quite a. It is something like you've said. It stops the rot in terms of actually picking up a point. The team were quite vocal. I thought at the end of the game of how happy they were and how hard they had worked, because I do think, despite how poor the recent form has been, there's certain games that on a different day we don't lose. That MK game, for example, they've had a penalty. I really don't think it was a penalty. Flip side, we've had a penalty and missed it. So on a different day, maybe that's a point. Um, in my eyes, it's a. I would say it's a positive, just because we've seen what Courtney Baker Richardson can do, especially when he's got a clinical strike partner with him. I suppose our best option in terms of experience would be to pair him with Jed Garner.
Hmm.
Yeah, then we potentially question, is the pace there at the front line for what we're trying to achieve, I suppose. But we've seen what he can do. He's a very good almost second man up top. And I thought he took his finish really well. So if he can kind of get that running, and his celebration kind of showed everything. He was really he kind of cupped his hand into his face and all that kind of stuff. He looked really, I wouldn't even say happy, motivated potentially is the term I would use.
Relief as well, maybe, because
Potentially,
it got
yeah.
me curious because you said you couldn't remember the last time he scored. So I was just quickly scrolling through. His last goal was on the 15th of March in a 3-0 win against Harrogate. Before that, it was the 8th of February in a 3-0 win against Crewe. And then you have to go all the way back to a penalty against Accrington in a 3-1 win, uh, um, 24th of August last year. So 3 goals in 14 months, give or take.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a great, goal scoring record, is it? So, I don't think, even though he has scored, and again, he took the finish really well, I still don't think he's the focal point of an attack. When we had Dom Telford and he won the golden boot, Baker Richmond was the strike partner, and he was a lot of the reason for that kind of success. But I think it's more of a team thing. If he can get firing, he benefits the entire team. The entire team can play off of
Mhm.
what is a really physical kind of prowess up front when he gets going. It just depends on whether he can be consistent, because after he scored against Harrogate, we all thought, he's back now. We'll see him. We'll see him get a good few more goals and assists and just overall involvements. Don't he hasn't scored since then. So yeah, it's two sides of the coin, I suppose.
Oh,
But
absolutely. There always is. Does
yeah,
he change the way you can potentially play, though, if he starts more football matches? Because I think it's fair to say, and you've said it there, Kieran, about him being a focal point, and all clubs need him. If we talk about international level going back years, Emil Heskey never scored loads of goals for England. But if you ask Michael Owen who his best partner was, Emil Heskey, because he created so much space and goals for Michael himself. Is there a case now to say you can maybe play him through the middle, and then you've got the likes of Bobby Camwa, Michael Raindorf, who I think's had a decent start, relatively speaking, albeit in a struggling side on loan from Cardiff. Play them off the side, gives you the pace you want. You've then got who's the young lad? Is it Nathaniel Apoku?
yeah,
So it's not like you've not got options at all. Obviously, we're caveating that is the thing. Obviously, there's a limit to how good they are because of the situations that you've already explained. But does he potentially change the way you play if you can get him firing, or if because you have to give him starts to try and get him firing? That's the first port of call.
yeah. You have to give him starts now. To my knowledge, he was injured for a little bit. He
Mhm.
actually, I say to my knowledge, he was injured for a little bit, and that's why we didn't really see him. Opoku could do stupidly well at this level.
Mhm.
He came on against MK, looked really, really solid, played a little bit. In our most recent game, looked really solid. So, is it to say that he's potentially gone down the pecking order? No, not really. But we know what he can provide. We know what Baker Richmond can do if he has those. If he has those options to play out to, whether it be with a striker next to him or whether it be that he can play wingers on. He has that. He has that ability to kind of change how it works weirdly, more in the middle of the park. He was really, when I remember watching him a good while back, I remember him almost coming in as a false nine, almost being that guy to hold the ball up, very similar to what Emil Heskey used to do.
Mhm.
He used to be that kind of player, and we haven't seen that in a while. He's looked quite lethargic and not really into the game. But should we get him firing? Does he deserve more football? Yeah, again, because we know what he can provide. But it's just a question now of, will Opaku get more game time because of how good he's looked, and potentially even Jed Garner, or even then you question, do we switch to a front two? We have options, but again, like you alluded to, it's the quality of those options and the consistency that kind of relies with them.
That's it. And it's not like you haven't got exciting younger players. Like we've mentioned, Apokwu. You've got Matt Baker, defender, who I think's really good at the level, still only 22. We've mentioned Reindorf, who's come in and he's settled in fairly well. Like I say, for a side that's struggled, he's looked apart. He looks like he can create. He looks like he knows where the goal is himself. Gills fans remember Bobby Camwa from last year's visit, unfortunately, for his hat trick inside half an hour. So out of them youngsters, who's impressed the most? I think I had Matt Baker as a sort of unsung hero in one of my mini series videos back in the summer. Who would you say out of them youngsters so far has been the brightest, and who potentially has the highest ceiling?
I'm going to give you two, and there's one that you haven't mentioned there.
Mhm.
Matt Baker's the one. I
Okay.
think when I'm looking at the way we set up and kind of the way these games have gone, despite me saying, "Oh yeah, we've only lost games by a margin of one," that Grimsby game, if it hadn't have been for the likes of Matt Baker and Nick Sana, we probably would have conceded about six. So I'd go Matt Baker just on his ability to cause damage limitation, I suppose, which isn't a positive in one way, but it could be a positive should we be holding a lead. But
Hmm.
the other one that nobody really mentions, Kai Whitmore's the other one.
Hmm.
Midfielder that we signed from Haverfordwest last
I did
season.
actually write him down. I just forgot to say it. I do
Yeah,
apologise. Yeah, he's had
no,
a solid start. Yeah.
yeah, he's been one that again injuries have kind of hindered how much of a ceiling he could have had. He got injured against Doncaster last season after scoring, if I'm not mistaken. Got injured in either our first or second game of this season. Came back, looked really solid in the middle of the pack, if you want to put it that way. I'd like to say he's more of a box to box midfielder. I've seen him do a little bit of defensive work, but then
Hmm.
I've seen him get involved and chip in with a few goals. One of them coming against
Scored a really good
Bristol
goal against Bristol
Rovers.
Rovers, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, in a game that was very close to being what would have been a phenomenal point should we have gotten another goal given circumstances. Um, yeah, he's one that I would mention. Um, in again, injuries have kind of been his problem to where he almost doesn't get mentioned because of how rarely he's available. Um, there's a few others. A lot of people on loan, for example. Ogbanai is one that I'm quite a big fan of. Very pacey fullback, kind of
Hmm.
helps the attack. Very role player though, doesn't really have that quality. But I could sit here and name you a good few that I think have a ceiling. But if I'm going to give you two, it's Whitmore and Baker. But realistically, probably Matt Baker as the highest ceiling. I could very easily see him playing for the senior Wales setup in a few years' time.
Think he was at our place as a kid. I'm pretty sure he
Yeah,
was, and we released him, and Stoke took him and put him in their academy, and then he obviously it's not quite worked out, but yeah, I'm sure he is from down this way originally.
I'm pretty certain. Yeah, because I remember a chant when we went to your place, something along the lines of
He
Matt
scored
Baker
last
hates the
season, didn't he?
Gills.
Yeah.
Yeah, we said something along the lines of Matt Baker hates the Gills or something like that. It was something along those lines. I'm sure he doesn't, but you know, the
I'm
relevance was there, I suppose. I don't remember whether he scored and then celebrated. Who knows?
sure he did
But
score in your win at our place last season.
it was him and
Hoodlin, I think.
Hudlin. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember watching that goal, seeing a 6'9" striker perform a Cruyff turn might be the best thing I've ever seen in football. I'm going to be honest.
Football life has peaked.
Yeah, yeah, it won't get better than that.
The flip side, like we keep saying, it keeps being a cliche. The flip side to the coin now of having all these promising youngsters is that the squad is very inexperienced. Looking at it on paper, that must be a concern. I've gone through the ages, and for me, there's only Nick Zarnev, James Clark, Liam Shepherd, and Courtney Baker Richardson that are over 28 years of age. Um, all your midfielders are under 25 or under, which for me is a very key area of the pitch. That's not to say they're not good players or can't be good players, but is that a worry? Just how young the squad is?
I think it's been a worry for the past two seasons. I
Okay.
think we came into this season with a little bit less worry. They've got a year under their belt, albeit it wasn't pretty. They've got a year there, and potentially they know what to fix and how to adapt from. But no, I think when you have a team full of so many young players, you need to have that experience with it. When we released Aaron Wildig, for example, in the summer, despite the fact he's changed to part-time football and all this other stuff, I think a lot of us want to keep him because he was that midfielder. He was the kind of guy that could have drove those younger midfielders on, even if he didn't play too much himself. Just having someone there would have been useful. But yeah, it's a concern in the way of should we get even further in trouble as the season goes on? Do those players know how to get out of it? Do they know what they need to change? Albeit they wouldn't be professional footballers if they didn't have some form of, knowledge of
Mhm.
struggles and whatnot and all that kind of stuff behind them. But I don't know. It's when you've got one of the experienced players that you've mentioned already injured, and one of them, two of the other two actually are to and from injury, then it becomes a little bit of an issue because there's not that experience there, and we've been It's another thing we've been wanting over the summer, and another reason that I've kind of criticised the owner, I suppose, in recent seasons. But I think that was always the transfer plan anyway. But yeah, in a very long dwindled answer, yeah, it is a concern in a way.
It is because, like you say, you've only got four, two of them become injured or suspended, and suddenly it then looks really, really young, doesn't it? Um, and I'm not sure one of them plays a great deal anyway. One of the experienced names, which was Clark, he hasn't played a lot this
Yeah,
season, has he? So,
he more comes off the bench. Shepard's injured. He's the one. He's the one that is injured.
so suddenly you're down to two already. And like you say, Courtney Baker Richardson's only just coming back. Zarnev, I think it's fair to say, didn't cover himself in glory against Bristol Rovers. There's a case to say all the goals he could have done better with.
Have you seen the Tranmere goal? I don't think he covered himself in glory with that game, with that one either. If you
No,
haven't watched
yeah,
that, go
yes, I
give
have.
that a
Yeah,
gander.
yeah, I did see
Yeah,
that to be. That was Jaden something scored their goal. I remember, yes, yeah, it
yeah.
wasn't. So lack of confidence. You then chuck in a fairly inexperienced manager as well, and I can see why there are concerns from yourself and potentially the rest of the fan base. But to end on a positive, Kieran, before we blow full time, Gills haven't won against Newport since 1986, and that was a 2-1 victory in front of a crowd of 2,533 at your old Somerton Park Stadium. Um, 6 games in League Two since you came back into the Football League and we got relegated out of League One have bought 6 Newport wins, 2 Gills goals and 12 for Newport. The home and away record is exactly the same. At Priestfield and at Rodney Parade, it's 3 wins from 3 for you. It's 1 goal for us and 6 against. But, and this is for the Gills fans, the last time we played you in the month of September was the Saturday the 6th in 1980, and we won 3-2 in front of a Priestfield crowd of 4,712. So I'm desperately clinging to that because I'm coming to Wales on Saturday because I really want us to break this record. Final question before I let you go, and I appreciate your time already. Like I said, score prediction.
I think we're both clutching on straws for records here, aren't we? You're,
They're not good
you're
records either, are
yeah,
they?
they're not. No, you're clutching onto that, and I'm clinching onto the fact that we've beaten you a few times.
Mhm.
Doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. We'd beaten Doncaster 6 times on the spin last season, lost to them twice. So I don't know. I feel like if you're ever gonna break that
Mm.
Newport tradition of robbing 6 points off you every season, it's gonna be Saturday.
Okay.
Um, I'm not gonna say that you're gonna do it because I think it's funnier that way myself. Do I think we'll beat you? Absolutely no chance. If we do, I'll be very, very shocked, and I may buy a lottery ticket. I'm gonna go for a really stale and boring 1-1, probably from 2 errors at some point.
I'm clinging desperately to that September record and the fact that we are playing well. And like you alluded to about the Doncaster point, we've actually played teams this season we've not had a good record against. Like we hadn't beat Walsall for 10 years, we beat them. We had a rubbish record at Prenton Park, we equalised in the last minute. Um, I think Crewe we'd struggled against at home, we beat them 1-0. So I'm going to say 2-1 to the Gills.
He does have it already written down.
And I'm going to back Josh Andrews to continue his scoring form and Elliot Nevitt to finally get his first goal of the season because I think his performances have deserved it.
I'm just going to put Matt Baker to score for Newport because I think that would be really funny and ironic.
You can sing your chant again, can't you? So
Yeah. I'll be able to report back to you then when I remember it.
no, that's fine. Right, Kieran, like I say, really appreciate your time and your knowledge and you telling us all about Newport County, the struggles and why we still do it. And I hope you don't mind me mentioning, you said before we press record that you are finding it tough at the moment. And I totally get that because we all use football as an out from working life, the stresses of everyday life. So it is horrible when your team's not playing well. Obviously, from my selfish point of view, I hope your struggles continue for another 90 minutes. And then after that, you go on a wonderful unbeaten run for a little while. But like I said, I do really appreciate your time. Gills fans, Newport fans and neutrals, if you're still watching at this point, can we target 100 likes again on this preview show? That'd be really, really good. So go and click that like button down there. While you're at it, if you're new, please press subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you will not miss an episode. Be back Saturday. Myself and Ava are travelling to Rodney Parade for another away day, another local one for us. When are they ever? We got sport with Bromley a couple of weeks ago. But until then, I hope you have a good week. And of course, up the Gills.